#1.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time to talk a little NBA with the man, the myth, the legend. It is Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com. Kurt, how the heck are you, man?
Hey, Kurt.
I'm doing well. How you doing, gentlemen?
We're doing great. How about that blockbuster trade of the Utah Jazz? Wheeling and dealing, man.
I actually like that deal for you guys. It's a complete bet against Phoenix, obviously. Like you're betting that in 2031, when a crop of current seventh graders are ready to be drafted, they're not going to be very good. But I think that's a good bet, honestly, because those 3 picks he gave up are all. I mean, Cleveland's this year is going to be 29, probably 30, somewhere in there, and the other 2 are probably in the 20s. So this is a good gamble that thing's going to blow up, and that's going to be a really good pick and down the line that's going to be really useful, and it's frankly going to be, if nothing else, it'd be very retradable over the coming years, where that'll be a coveted piece.
Well, I was looking at just how bad a shape Phoenix is in, and what that pick will be like in 6 years. You got Kevin Durant through the 25-26, but you've got Bradley Beal taking you 26-27. The financial peril that they're in, kind of walk us through that, Kurt. How did Phoenix find themselves at $223 million in cap and $222 on the books for 25-26?
I would like you to introduce you to Matt Ishbia, the owner of he's one of the owners who came in and wanted to, we'll say, buy a title. He came in, and he's not the first guy to do this. Prokhorov did it in Brooklyn. Other guys, hey, I'm going to go get Garnett and Pierce. Guys come in and they think they can buy a couple guys and start moving this towards a title. And it doesn't really work. You've got to build something more foundationally strong to do it. And they're going to be in a world of hurt. They can keep Durant, but Durant's going to age at some point. Beal will be, frankly, if not gone before the trade deadline, he'll be gone long term. But then let's say, even if they make the Butler trade, now you got to re-sign Butler for a couple of years. You're really playing a lot of short-term games there, trying to win now, and those things always tend to catch up with you. And you can get away with it a little more if you're, I don't know, the Lakers or the Knicks or somebody, Miami, in a glamour market somewhere where you can go. It's easier to get players to come to. People like Phoenix, but you're going to have to build something there, and it's just going to take longer. So I think that pick is going to be. And by the way, when this all falls apart, there's a whole lot of teams that are going to be looking at Devin Booker. We'll see if he wants to stay. That could be a real mess of a team in 6 years.
So when you look at, obviously we're all assuming this is to try to get some more ammunition for that Jimmy Butler deal. Do you think that eventually goes through? And frankly, to me, that just makes the circus even more crazier there in Phoenix with him there.
Hey, it's funny. I just tweeted out this afternoon. I'm sorry, not tweeted. Whatever we're calling those now. Just asking people the question, do you think they're a contender? Because I don't think they are. Look, they're better. What Jimmy Butler brings, assuming Jimmy Butler brings his A game, is he can still score. He can still get up for stuff. But what I think he brings, they need more than anything. Jimmy Butler has got some dog in him. He plays hard. He fights when he wants to. Plays hard. He will make your team better that way. And that team really doesn't have that guy. It doesn't have that kind of Booker and Durant are lead by example guys, not vocal guys. I think that kind of energy would be good for them. But what does that make them? Are they better than? I don't know that they're better than Memphis, frankly. And it is a little wide open after Oklahoma City in the West right now. Maybe Denver's the second best team in a playoff series. Maybe Dallas if they get healthy. But I'm not sure that it moves. I guess if you're Phoenix, you're going to convince yourself it gives you a puncher's chance in a series. Where I'm not convinced that's going to be worth everything they're about to give up.
So when you look at the 3 picks that the Jazz moved, you kind of mentioned it briefly, that it's looking like Cleveland will be very good for some time. Cleveland's kind of locked up through, is it the 28th season? They've got their roster pretty much comprised and locked up, don't they, Kurt?
Yeah, they've got it locked up. They've got about 2 or 3 more seasons after this one. I'd have to go look at the numbers. They're eventually going to have to pay guys, but they've accepted that this is what it's going to be for a little while. They've maxed out Evan Mobley. They gave Garland a big extension. The guy who could end up going is Jared Allen, who absolutely matters to them, but that might be the most replaceable skill set in a way. Like he's just you can do better getting people who play like him than you can finding another Evan Mobley or another Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland. So yeah, they're pretty locked up, pretty together. Minnesota's got some good young players. They still got Anthony Edwards. Let's be honest. Once they get rid of Julius Randle this summer and they reopen up that roster, like it will be fine. So none of those picks are going to be good. Those are going to be picks. It's going to be the worst of those picks, which means it's going to be somewhere in the 20s probably for each of those drafts. 2019 is a little ways out, but my guess is that the worst of those picks is going to be mid to late 20s on all of them.
Kurt Helin joining us, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com. You talk about the Cavaliers. What chance do you give them once the playoffs roll around? Because great regular season team, but is this? Yeah. Do we put them as a potential contender?
I think I have to right now, just because I think they're capable of it. I do have them on that tier in like my power rankings that will come out later today, but like they're not playoff tested. Here's what I know. I know Boston healthy goes 7 deep with guys who play two ways. Great defensive guard combo with White and Drew Holiday. There's not somebody you just obviously pick on. And I get deep into it. When you get deep into a playoffs with that Cleveland team, there's still guys I might be able to pick on, and especially with some of the guys off their bench. So I'm not convinced that they can beat a fully healthy Boston team in 7. But Boston hasn't looked. They're 8-8 in their last 16. They've looked a little off. If they're not 100%, I think they're right there. I think that team is really good, and they are, by the way, seriously considering trying to make a move for Cameron Johnson out of a wing out of Brooklyn to try and balance that whole thing out a little bit more. That's the one position of need for them, and they might be in if we're going to go all in, let's really go all in kind of spot.
Kurt, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Luka Doncic. We haven't seen him since Christmas, and the only thing I remember being announced was that it was a calf strain. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember anything more significant, if it was an Achilles rupture or tear or strain, if it was just a calf strain all the way back on Christmas. And I'm just interested. Is there something more to it? Or is this a calf strain and we're just going to watch Luka come back here in a bit?
From whatever, it's not more than that. It's a calf strain, but like a severe enough one that from the moment it happened, it was going to be a month, which was going to be late January. What I've heard is you will see him before the All-Star game. Okay. Which, by the way, leads to the interesting question of, he's Luka Doncic. He is unquestionably talented enough to be an All-Star, but do you put him on the team? Or do you leave that spot to, a Jaren Jackson Jr. or, there's a lot of good players out there who are.
Will he get the popular vote?
He will be pretty high. He's not. He wasn't one of the fan starters at guard, I don't think, in the West, although I could be wrong about that. I'd have to go back and look. He might have been one of the 2 fan starters, but I don't think he'll get the media player vote and get voted in a starter. And if he doesn't, I'm just not sure if they pick him as a reserve. I'm trying to remember now. It was Curry and Shea, I believe, in the West, and Doncic was 3rd.
Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. When you look at this Jazz organization and what they're trying to develop, and Hans and I were talking about this earlier, like eventually they're going to have to go all in. Eventually there's going to need to be something that this fan base, because they're still packing that arena. There's still a lot of great energy in this building, but eventually that's going to start to wane. Do you anticipate, and I asked you this last year, kind of going into the draft, is there something on the horizon? Do you see anything with any player that might cause a little division or something that might be brewing, that there might be a need for a team to come in and either help facilitate a trade or help facilitate or acquire a player that could take the Jazz to the next level?
I think they're going to try to do it through the draft. They've obviously got a number of picks coming up, and the next two drafts are deep with really talented players. But if it doesn't work that way, if the lottery balls don't bounce your way, then trying to engineer a trade becomes the next step, and finding a way to ultimately in the NBA, you still need to go get at least one, if not two of those guys, right? You've got to have, and unless you're going to luck into it like the Knicks did with Jalen Brunson, I don't know, you've got to either draft him or go get that guy. So one way or another, I think they'd prefer to do it through the draft if that doesn't happen. But yeah, ultimately they've got to make some moves. But I think right now you're in talent acquisition mode, man. Just get all the talent you can, bring it all in-house, develop it, and see what you can make of that, and then adjust.
Kurt, in your experience in the years covering this league and watching teams be built, watching whatever draft picks being moved and players being acquired, how often do general managers watch the landscape? For instance, I don't want to do that in the middle of the height of the Chicago Bulls. I don't want to do that in the middle of the Golden State Warriors dynasty.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. There's certain – do general managers track that, follow it, and pull triggers based off of what the NBA is currently doing?
It's a consideration if you think a team's going to be dynastic, like you kind of thought, like the teams you mentioned, like the Warriors, especially once they went and got Durant. There were a couple of teams who were like, maybe we should maybe we shouldn't go all in for a couple of years, because the thing is, under today's CBA, that even a team that's as well set up as could be for the situation, which I would say Oklahoma is, they are clearly a contender. They've got their MVP. They've got tons of picks and players, and they can keep refreshing this thing for years. It's still not going to be so intimidating. It's just you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of intimidating level of dynasty for an extended period. And so I don't think you have to worry about it the same way you might have in the past. But they do time it out a little bit. Like you are thinking, hey, man, I know Denver hasn't done this, but there might have been people thinking a few years ago, like, well, how do we work around Jokic? There's certain times where certain guys just change the vibe of things.
After the news of Greg Popovich dealing with that stroke back in November, do you anticipate that he'll be back on an NBA bench sometime, or do you think that this is the precursor to him announcing a retirement at the end of the year?
Can it be both?
Yeah.
Honestly, my guess is he's going to leave. He's going to want to leave on his own terms. He is going to want to come back and coach that team for a bit. But I think everyone's accepting that there is something next. They're going to have to step into whatever and whoever is going to be next. And I don't know that that's Mitch Johnson, I don't know that's the current guy. There is such a huge Spurs coaching tree out there because of Popovich, and so many guys who would love to come back in the right situation, who have a fondness for the organization, that they can go get somebody good. It'll be just interesting to see what direction they go. And who they might bring in.
There's a certain 7-footer from France that I think makes that job very appealing as well.
That's a good point. You talk about a guy who's kind of potentially dynastic, yeah, right? Like that. I don't know that you can build an unstoppable team around anybody, but you can build something around Wemby that's going to be really good for a long time. The same way, look, it's kind of the way the Nuggets have been with Jokic this year, which is, man, Jamal Murray's struggling for a while and whatever, and they just keep their head above water because Jokic is so good it doesn't matter. And then when everybody starts to come in around them, suddenly you're like, oh, wow, they do look pretty good. So, yeah, it's going to be like, that's a good point. with Wemby there, they're not going anywhere for a while.
No.
They're going to be right at the top of the West. And you don't plan around them. You've still just, if you're Utah, you've just got to get better and worrying about tackling that problem when it comes up. But yeah, they're going to be good for. God, he's still. Did he just turn 21? I think.
Yeah. How about that? Hey, speaking of the Spurs, playing overseas right now, I'm kind of curious because I remember back, I don't know, probably about 10 years or so, I kept hearing from people in the Jazz front office that thought that there could be a second team in Chicago or another team in Southern California somewhere, that the NBA was looking at those markets for additional teams. Do you get the sense that if expansion does happen, that it could be overseas?
Not overseas like Europe, no. Would they consider Mexico City or another team in Canada? That's possible, but not with the current round. I mean, the next expansion is going to be Seattle and Vegas, but after that, maybe. What they're looking at more overseas, and I don't know how they do this financially, and I'm not going to pretend to know, but would be an idea of setting up their own little 6-team league or
Gotcha.
10-team league or something where they, Euro League in basketball, Champions League, and although you play your way into that, the Euro League in basketball is better because I think there's 12 charter members, 8 or 12 charter members, where that team is automatically in every year. And I think if you could find a way to poach some of them and get, FC Barcelona and Real Madrid and a handful of others of the real powerhouses into a league every year, then you could form a European division or something, and they could play some games against. I'm not sure what that whole thing would look like, but that's more likely because the travel makes it. You can't just put one team over there and put them in the league. The travel would be impossible.
Kurt, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for hanging out with us, and look forward to chatting with you again next week.
I've got to find a way to get the league, NBC, to. I have to cover these games.
Yeah, you should.
I think it's vitally important that somebody be there in person.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure. In no way it's just about me wanting to go eat French food for a week.
No. Look, the NBC deserves that coverage in Paris, and you need to be the one delivering it. Absolutely.
I can promise you that I would write really good stories from the cafe on the corner.
Why do I see you being like Chevy Chase from European Vacation?
That is my goal, I guess.
Yep, I can see it.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt.
Take care, man.
Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com. Coming up next, we'll spin the wheel, a little sports roulette straight ahead right here on The Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bangs.
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5. The KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time for another edition of Sports Roulette. We take some of the big storylines we have not had a chance to get to. We put on a roulette wheel, we spin it, and wherever that little white ball lands is what we end up talking about. Hey, make sure to visit the contest page on KSLSports.com for your chance to win tickets to see the Utah Jazz, the Utah Hockey Club, concert tickets, and more. Plus, this week we're giving away tickets to the Utah Boat Show and Water Sports Expo, January 30th through February 2nd at Mountain America Expo Center. Visit KSLSports.com for your chance to win. Just go to the contest page, and you will have an opportunity for you and Hans, because, Hans, you're getting that pontoon boat here any day now, right?
Any day. I mean,
I've never seen you.
Got to hit a lottery.
I've never seen you yearn for something more than that pontoon boat.
I want it. If there's anything that my heart desires that I know I just can't have. It's a freaking pontoon boat. And I drive through my neighborhood, and I'm like, okay,
he's got a boat. He's got a boat.
He's got one.
Yeah.
He's got one. What does he do? What do I got to do to get a pontoon boat?
Took the boys to that car show over the weekend.
Yeah.
And they had some boat. They also had some boats there, and boys wanted to get on some of those boats. And it's the ones that for like riding for what is it? Not boogie boarding. What is it? Wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And those boats are pretty sweet.
The surfboarding boats.
They don't look like fishing boats. The boats they had there did not look like fishing boats.
Oh no, and they are a little more expensive than fishing boats.
I just want to fish.
I just want a pontoon boat, and I'll never get it, Scotty.
Oh, you will get it.
I'll never get it. They're too expensive.
Yeah.
I went and looked at one that was like dirt and rust and didn't have carpet and stank and had rats' nests in the cubbies, and it was $17,000. And I told the guy, I said, it's $17,000. He's like, I just had it rewired.
Yeah, you should be giving me $2,000 to take this off your hands.
Yeah, it's an eyesore in your neighborhood, bud. Let me take this thing off your hands.
There's guts on the steering wheel.
Hey, if anybody out there has a nice pontoon boat that they just want to part with, let me know.
Yeah. Give my guy faith in humanity restored.
I would really love an opportunity.
Hey, is this breaking news, or did we just I think we kind of assumed this, but 10 minutes ago, Jack Kelly just put out a tweet that says, let's run it back. He's coming back to BYU.
Yeah, we just assumed it.
Yeah. So it is now official. Jack Kelly is back at BYU for next year.
And I did mention it, that was what I was expecting about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So not a huge surprise here, especially if you've been listening to Hands on the show.
Yeah. I expect him back. There's a couple others. I expect Darius Lassiter. If he's got that extra year of eligibility, I expect Caleb Etienne.
Woo.
If he's got that extra year of eligibility.
That's a huge pickup if they can get those two back.
Yep. Obviously, I expect Isaiah Glasker.
Yeah.
He is eligible. He's draft eligible. And I do think he'd be a 4th or 5th round pick.
If you can bump that up to 2nd or 3rd, which I think is distinctly possible.
I think it's very, very possible, especially putting Keanu Tanavasa in front of him.
I didn't even think about that.
I think that.
Oh my goodness.
I think BYU is going to be.
You get a space eater like that,
a real problem,
and let him roam sideline to sideline. Yeesh.
It's going to be a interesting team.
Wow.
Next year.
All right, let's get to it. Lloyd, fire up that wheel.
Hey, zebra boy, don't turn your back on me.
Oh boy, Dan Hurley.
What tweet did you send? I saw you tweet something.
Let's see. How did I write that?
And I can't remember if it made me laugh or I can't remember.
It said, so Dan Hurley.
It did make me laugh. It was something about what you would yell.
Goes up to an official at their game against Butler, in which they ended up winning in overtime against Butler, but said, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in this effing sport.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what did you say?
And I said, to be fair, back in the day, I may have said this to a 14-year-old official at my kids' 8 and under city rec league flag football game.
Which you're probably accurate. This one interests me because I read the transcripts, but I have not heard it in his voice. And the transcript is interesting because essentially he's like, I just want the TV cameras to focus on the other coaches like they focus on me. But here's the question about what happened on the court and Dan Hurley's reply.
I think TV got you saying something like, don't turn your back on me, I'm the best coach in the country.
Did I say that? Yeah. I mean, I know we I'm going to sound like an here, so, he just, I want some level of communication too, especially when you just.
So he says he wants a level of communication. He goes on and he says, I just wish they put the camera on the other coach more. I just wish they'd show these other coaches losing their minds at the officials in other Big East games that I'm coaching. where I'm not actually talking to the officials. I see the other coaches as demonstrative as I am, but the camera obviously, and then he catches himself. He goes, well, I've created this for myself. I'm not the victim.
Good,
he did. He said, I've created this for myself. I'm not the victim. But he was like, pan on the other coach, because every coach does freak out on officials.
Oh, yeah.
He's just sick of the cameras being on him.
And look, we saw Colorado's coach and Kevin Young get into it last night.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, like, I that's the one fun thing about, well, there's a lot of fun things about calling these games and sitting courtside is you see a lot of interaction between coaches. And sometimes it can be really amusing because sometimes coaches like to have some fun at each other's expense. And then other times it gets downright nasty. Like, and it's funny because Ryan Odom, who appeared to be like the most chill, relaxed dude on the planet, he mixed it up with other coaches all the time. I thought he and the, who's the buffoon from St. Mary's? I thought those dudes were going to swing fists. And then you got Danny Sprinkle, who's one of the most hard-nosed coaches I've ever been around with his team. That dude's cracking jokes with the other coach like crazy. And
never really got abrasive, huh?
Never got abrasive with the other coach. Never saw it once. But I saw Ryan Odom do it all the time. And Coach Calhoun, I haven't really seen him mix it up. But he doesn't joke around like Danny's. It's just really fascinating. That's the one.
How they handle it.
How different coaches handle it. But you're right, though. And Dan Hurley's right in that he's brought this on himself.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's also because he's won at a high level. You know, you win a couple national championships and people are going to pay more attention to you. But also because you do act like a buffoon out there all the time.
He does. And this UConn team is going to be interesting again. It's the season that started off bad, whatever he won or lost 3 or 4 in a row. And now he's got himself on a nice streak. I think he's won 10 of the last 12. And I could see Dan Hurley and this team being a problem again in the tournament.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And he's got a point. He is one of the best coaches. Now, whether he can sustain that or his voice gets tired, his act gets tired, because it feels like it's getting tired through the public's eye.
Yeah.
Definitely getting tired through the officials. And the camera crews are onto it, so they sit on him while he's throwing his tantrums, saying, don't you turn your back on me. I'm the best effing coach in this league. That's egotistical.
Yeah.
And
he didn't really deny that he said it, and he didn't deny that he feels that way either.
Do you think he's a narcissist, like a full-blown narcissist?
I think to be a coach at that level, you kind of have to be, don't you? Isn't that most coaches are kind of wired that way?
I don't think we've ever heard Coach K say something like that.
Well,
that we know of.
I would
like to do it.
I've heard some really gnarly things about Krzyzewski.
Have you?
Yeah.
With his actions in locker room or
with officials and like that he had this nice buttoned up good guy that he was a tyrant. Now, I mean, you played for the best good guy on the planet, Lavelle, who's the opposite of a narcissist.
Yep.
But I mean, let's go to maybe Tony Dungy falls a little bit more in the Lavelle category, but Jim Mora does not.
Jim Mora was a high level narcissist, but he had a couple of other screws loose. But I loved him.
Yeah.
I loved Jim Mora, man.
I mean, the wheel was spinning, but the hamster was dead with that guy.
Wow. And he was always prepared for a fight.
Yeah.
Always prepared for a fight, dude. He just didn't care who you were, what you meant, didn't care. Man, I watched him. He just undressed Reggie Wayne like I've never seen any player ever beat down verbally.
And that was a high-level first-round pick, too.
Yeah. And we were probably 3 or 4 weeks into the season, and he went at Reggie Wayne so hard for nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just wanted to show everybody, I don't care who you are. Well,
unless you're
fired.
Unless you're Peyton. No, you're not doing that to Peyton.
No, he did stay away from Peyton. He stayed away from Peyton.
All right, one more, Lloyd. Let's spin it.
Do we worry about the coaches poll?
Oh, you and I were just looking at that.
Yeah, the USA Today coaches poll not only released to end the season, but also they released all the individual coaches and their polls as well. And it's interesting to see how some people handled themselves. And now, granted, some of these coaches actually take the time and fill out the polls, and maybe these coaches on this last poll of the season spent a little bit more time on it. But more often than not, these guys just hand it over to their GAs or their SIDs and say, you fill this out. I don't want to deal with this.
So a couple of the interesting ones. I guess everybody's just in this market. They're just interested where these coaches would have put BYU.
Yeah, yep.
So Kenny Dillingham, head coach of Arizona State, put BYU at number 8. Bronco Mendenhall, who just finished his season with New Mexico, just took the job at Utah State. He put him at 10, wasn't it, Scotty?
Yeah, 10. Now, Troy Calhoun at Air Force. Remember, there's some bad blood there still between Air Force and BYU, apparently. He had BYU at, I want to say, either 22 or 23.
22.
22.
Uh-huh. Chris Kleiman, the head coach of Kansas State, checked BYU in at number 11 and SMU at number 13. I do check SMU and BYU because I'm bugged about that one. It's the only thing that really bugged me. Because SMU at the back end of the season lost badly to Penn State.
Lost to Clemson.
Lost to Clemson, and BYU had the head-to-head. There's no way SMU should finish in front of them. Speaking of which, Rhett Lashley, who is the head coach of SMU that lost to BYU, put SMU solidly in front of BYU at number 9 and BYU down at number 13.
Which, if I'm him, I do the same. I don't blame him for that.
Yeah. Kansas, Lance Leipold, had BYU checked in at number 14. SMU at number 11. What was the other ones that we were interested in? Joey McGuire with Texas Tech had BYU at number 9.
There you go.
And as you mentioned, if I'm a Big 12 coach, I'm trying to take care of my own, although not every one of them took care of their own. There was a couple that buried them.
Yeah.
And the only other one that I thought was interesting was Boise State, but I can't.
Spencer Danielson. He had him fairly high, I want to say.
I can't find where Spencer Danielson had him. Did he?
I thought he had him top 10.
Oh, here he is. Number 13.
Oh, 13. Okay.
And he put his Boise State Broncos at number 6.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. All right, 2:51. Hans and Scotty. We'll wrap up this bad boy next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Football is the ultimate team sport, yet we get focused on the individual, the quarterback. And isn't it funny that basketball is not the ultimate team sport, yet the rap on LeBron's teammates for his entire career is, boy, his teammates aren't good enough. LeBron didn't win, man. It's because he doesn't have good enough teammates. Yeah. It's like if there is a team sport where one player can do it all, it is basketball. Yeah. But in football, where for the quarterback to complete a pass, there's like 15 different things that have to go right by everyone else on the field. In basketball, you can just stand aside and watch LeBron run over a guy.
Yeah. I mean, you can say Saquon carried that team, but it's like, go look at all the blocking he got. Go look at
from everybody.
From a basically perfect offensive line in Philadelphia.
In basketball, you truly can be like, hey, LeBron, go run over that guy.
Hey, Shaq.
But yet we're like, LeBron's teammates aren't good enough. It's all their fault.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty Chin. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, wrapping up another edition of the show. JJ and Alex coming up next. Hans got a little college hoops tonight. Utah State taking on Nevada. Should be a fun one up in Logan.
Utah State, Nevada, and you got Utah tipping off against Houston here in an hour.
Yeah.
And is that right, Lloyd?
Yeah. No, it's a little bit of a weird time. 4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock. Is that not strange?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Hey, what time is the Utah State tip, you said?
7 o'clock. Pre-game show will begin at 6:30.
Do we get that on national TV anywhere?
I think it'll be on Fox Sports.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
FS1, I want to say.
Make sure you link up Scotty G while you watch it.
For sure. Is Craig Smith...
by the way, Houston guard Emmanuel Sharp will not play tonight for Houston.
Well, that's good. Is there any way that Craig can sneak out a fourth? Woo. That would be a big one.
That would be a big one.
Well, it'd be nice to see him turn a corner. Like,
yeah,
and this would be a real... Now, beating his rival at the Huntsman, I actually think that was a statement win. But this would be like, hey, everybody, start working on an extension, possibly. Instead of a search.
Yes. Instead of that pink slip, you give me a lot of green
yellow
slips.
Yeah, green.
All right. 3 o'clock straight up. JJ and Alex next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.